Well, welcome viewers. Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia, and I've decided to, as far as I can, rerun the Australian Royal Commission videos on the channel. I just don't want people to forget what happened back there. Obviously, the Jehovah Witnesses are pretty ignorant of the Australian Royal Commission. So I'm going to do everything I can to try and run these videos. It's going to be lengthy, but I want to open it with Barbara Anderson's Watchtower documents. I'll put the link below. The Australian Royal Commission by Barbara Anderson. An Australian Royal Commission held formal public hearings to examine evidence about child sexual abuse within religious and charitable organisations in that country, in Australia, in my country. There are over 30 of these ongoing investigations involving a large number of religions and charities. Each public hearing examined a number of individual case studies involving different public and private organisations. Jehovah Witnesses were among the religious organisations being investigated. The Commission wanted to know specifically how Jehovah Witnesses and the Watchtower Society responded to allegations of child abuse involving members of their congregations. In 2015, the Royal Commission's public hearings involving Jehovah Witnesses were scheduled and heard in Sydney starting on Monday, July the 27th, and continued through to August 14th, 2015. The intent of the hearings was to investigate the actual practices and policies of the Jehovah Witnesses and Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia Limited in situations of reported and suspected child abuse or endangerment. Following up hearings were scheduled for spring 2017 to review the Watchtower of Australia's policy changes and plans for corrective action. 2017. On March 10, 2017, the Commission held follow-up hearings to hear the Watchtower representatives' descriptions of any corrective actions taken by the Australian branch of Jehovah Witnesses over the past 18 months. More than 5 hours of sessions, the Commission was not satisfied and clearly disappointed with the testimony and voiced their displeasure with the efforts and official responses by the Watchtower branch representatives. Now that's serious. You can follow this link if you want to hear the hearings. And I'm going to put these hearings up in this rerun of the Australian Royal Commission program. The scope and purpose of the hearings were to inquire into the experiences of survivors of child sexual abuse within the Jehovah Witness Church in Australia, the response of the Jehovah Witness Church and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia Limited to allegations, reports or complaints of child sexual abuse within the church, the systems, policies and procedures in place within the Jehovah Witnesses Church and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia Limited for raising and responding to allegations of or concerns about child sexual abuse within the church, and the systems, policies and procedures in place within the Jehovah Witness Church and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia Limited to prevent child sexual abuse within the church. During and after the hearings, the Commission provided witness lists, transcripts, exhibits, images and associated submissions for each case study and makes them publicly available on the Commission's website. And you can go to that website yourself if you want the evidence. Submissions. After hearing, the Council assisting the Royal Commission will provide witnesses and other people who were granted leave to appear at the hearing a written submission detailing what was discovered during the case study. The submission will outline key findings based on the hearing evidence and the recommendations likely to come from them. The recipients of the submission may then provide their own written submissions in reply. The Commissioners then consider this information and when they form their final recommendations during the course of the Royal Commission. In the articles below you will find videos of the live streams of the public hearings and transcripts of those hearings and complete sets of the exhibits used by the Commission that were provided by those involved in the case. Many of these exhibits have never been publicly available before. And here's some of the stuff you can see. But I'm going to go now to live footage from the Australian Royal Commission on the Jehovah Witnesses, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, Church organisation. I hope you enjoy this series.
Mr. Speaker, today as a nation, we confront our failure to listen, to believe and to provide justice. And again today we say sorry. To the children we failed, sorry. To the parents whose trust was betrayed and who have struggled to pick up the pieces, sorry. To the whistleblowers who we did not listen to, sorry. To the spouses, partners, wives, husbands, children who have dealt with the consequences of the abuse, cover-ups and obstruction, sorry. To generations past and present, sorry. We honour every survivor in this country. We love you, we hear you and we honour you. No matter if you are here at this meeting place or elsewhere, this apology is to you and for you. Your presence and participation makes tangible our work today, and it gives strength to others who are yet to share what has happened in their world. And later, when the speeches are over and we stand in silence and we remember the victims who are not with us anymore, many too sadly by their own hand. As a nation, we failed them, we forsook them, and that will always be our shame. This apology is for them and their families too. Not just as a father, but as a Prime Minister, I am angry too at the calculating destruction of lives and the abuse of trust, including those who have abused the shield of faith and religion to hide their crimes, a shield that is supposed to protect the innocent, not the guilty, and they stand condemned. I simply say, I believe you, we believe you, your country believes you.
The lawnmower man came to mow the lawns and I thought he was going around to all the doors and windows and deliberately trying to scare me. And I went into the games room with the kids and hid behind the doll's house, and I said to them, "Don't let him see me." And they were laughing at me and going, "What's wrong with you, Mummy?" And I think I scared them a little bit, or they just thought I was being strange. And when I told my friend about what happened to me, because she knew, she guessed that this is the reason why I had my breakdown, was because I told my close friend about a little bit about what happened, and she knew who it was, and I got scared that it was all going to come out and everyone was going to know about it, and it really scared me. And the next couple of weeks I lost 15 kilos because I was so anxious, and I was really sick. I couldn't get out of bed. I had no energy. I couldn't get out of bed, and I was hyperventilating. I was breathing into a paper bag all day long. And one day, my dad was staying with me every day. They were probably scared for me. And he said, "Have you eaten anything today?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You should eat something." So he made me a piece of toast, and I was chewing it and chewing it. And I ended up having to spit it out because I had no saliva in my mouth. And thank goodness I ended up going to the psychiatrist, and he put me on antidepressants, and otherwise I don't know what I would have done. I just wanted to go to sleep and not wake up. And I thought about taking sleeping pills, but I just kept thinking about my husband and my kids, and I couldn't do it to them.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Does anyone else have any questions? No, Your Honour.
I do, Your Honour, with the Commission,
Sorry.
please. I do.
You do? Yes.
BCB, obviously I represent you before the Commission. If I could take you to, excuse me, your initial complaint, if you like, to BCF.
Yes.
And that you talk about it at paragraph, excuse me, I think it's 48 of your statement. She had indicated to you that she had suffered abuse from her uncle.
Yes.
That's right. And then you told her, as you note in your statement, that something had happened to you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you give her any details about, not about the perpetrator, but what had happened to you?
A little bit. Like, I know I said in my statement that I told her what happened to me, but I didn't tell her everything that happened to me. I just said, I said something similar happened to me.
Did she give you the specifics of her abuse?
Not really. That was a long time ago. I can't really remember exactly.
So when you say something similar had happened to me,
yeah,
did you tell her any more about what had happened to you?
yes, I told her about how my friend's father had used to stick his tongue in my mouth when he kissed me, and that he came into the bathroom and perved at me, and I think that might have been all I spoke to her about. I did tell her about him coming into my room and wanting to show me his penis. Yeah.
Is the next thing that you can recall, just in relation to how these meetings came about between, with Max Hawley and Doug Jackson and Bill Neal? Is it the case that you were out preaching?
Yes.
And Max drove up to you?
He drove up to me, yes. I was out in the preaching work and he drove up to me and he said, can I come and visit you this afternoon? And he wanted to visit.
Who were you with at the time, if anybody?
I think I was with my husband. And
do you remember what you said to him when he asked, can I come and visit?
yes, I said he could come round that afternoon, yeah.
And did Max come alone to your home on that occasion?
Yeah, the first time.
Do you remember what he said to you?
Yes, he started talking about if you told a friend some information that was quite serious, and they and they said you should tell the elders, and you didn't want to. Can't remember exactly how he said it. Did
you eventually work out what he was talking about?
Yeah, he was trying to. I think he was trying to explain that BCF was obviously feeling bad because she'd told someone about what I'd said and was worried about my reaction.
And is it the case that you realised that he was talking about the
That's when I realised that
contact with Bill Neal?
That BCF had told somebody about what I told her.
And you burst into tears at that time?
Yeah.
And the next thing you recall is it the case that there was a meeting with Max present, is that right?
Yes.
Doug Jackson and...
no, the next meeting was Max and Bill and my husband and I.
So Max and Bill and your husband and yourself.
Yes.
So 2 elders were present,
Yes.
but one of them was your abuser.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And was that at your home?
That was in my lounge room.
At the time, did you feel, I'll withdraw that, you were 22 at the time, is that right?
Oh yeah, I think I was 22, yes. We'd just been married for a couple of years.
And you were both in the faith?
Yes.
Is that right? And you remain in the faith, is that right?
I'm taking a break
Right.
at the moment.
But at the time, you certainly, is it the case, didn't feel that you could question the process of what was occurring?
I was just doing as I was told.
And when you say just doing as you were told, do you mean from Max Horley?
Yes.
You indicate...
I assumed that he knew the correct procedure, and I was just going along with what he said because I respected him.
Mm. Were you told by Max that if there had been...
Mr. Hawley, do you have before you a copy of your statement, which is
I think we need to identify him first.
dated?
I think we need his name first.
What are your full names, Mr. Hawley?
Full name, Maxwell Frederick Hawley.
Thank you. Do you have a copy of your statement 7 July 2015 before you?
Yes.
Are there any corrections or amendments you'd like to make to that statement?
No, I think it's complete.
Do you confirm the statement is true and correct?
Yes.
I tender the statement.
It'll become Exhibit 29-2.
Mr. Hawley, you've been a Jehovah's Witness essentially your whole life, is that right?
That's correct.
You have been a Dawesville congregation elder since November 2012, and you served there as secretary, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you were appointed in an elder in the Narrogin congregation in 1988, and you served there as secretary too, is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
And there was only one other elder there at that time, that was Bill Neal.
When I was first appointed, there were 2 elders. One was quite elderly, and I think he then moved back to Perth, so that left Bill and I. Later on, there were 2 other elders appointed, and we had a situation arose where one was stood down and one moved away, so that left Bill and I at the time that this incident occurred.
Okay. And the first elderly elder that you referred to who moved back to Perth, was that Jack Shaylor?
That's correct.
And when Bill Neal was stood down in 1992, you became the presiding overseer, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Now, speaking generally now, but in your experience, as secretary of a congregation, what files or records do you keep?
We keep copies of the letters that are sent from the branch. We keep publisher record cards that report all their time spent in the ministry. Collate that information each month and send the details to the branch. We write letters when someone moves to another congregation and send a letter of introduction along with that. We also receive letters from other congregations when publishers move in. We keep records of committee cases that are held, judicial committee cases and things like that of a sensitive nature are kept on file too in case we need to refer back to them at a later time. But those are only usually seen by the ones acting on that committee at the time.
Is there a file or a record for each member of the congregation?
No, only the publisher record card, which details how much time they spend in the ministry each month.
And in respect of the files of a sensitive nature or records of a sensitive nature that you described following committee hearings, judicial committee hearings and so on, for how long are those retained?
I know we've had some information recently that after a certain period of time they are destroyed, but ones involving this particular type of case are supposed to be kept indefinitely.
And who has access to those records?
If it's a judicial case, then only the committee members that served on that committee, I understand, have access to go into that. They're all kept in the same place, but in the congregation I serve in now, all of the elders have access to the congregation file if they need to refer back to some of the letters that are on there or other records and so on.
And what information or records are passed on to the branch office?
The report each month for how much ministry is conducted by the congregation is compiled, and that's sent each month. Each year there is information logged about different activities at the congregation, how many publishers there are, how many unbaptised publishers and so on. That's just a brief overview. That's also sent to the branch. If they request information, then we might need to send a letter to them requesting that information. And sometimes for clarification of information, we might contact them in that way.
I gather from the documents I've seen that the congregation elders will also report to the branch on the outcome of judicial committee hearings.
Oh, that's correct. Sorry, yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, if we could have a look at paragraph 2.2 of your statement, that's on page 2. And you'll see in the last line you mention victims being encouraged to report abuse. Are we to understand that as reports to the elders? Is that right?
Yes.
And also in 2.3, in the last sentence, you say the relevant Bible principles make it clear that failure to report another's wrongdoing can make one responsible before God, and this is emphasized to the congregation. I take it again that the reference there to reporting another's wrongdoing is to report to an elder.
Yes, in Leviticus, those that become aware of wrongdoing, not actually having done it themselves, but if they hear of it, then they report it to the elders, so that if the person isn't forthcoming, then the elders can step in and handle it.
So these references in these two paragraphs to reporting, that's not reporting to the secular authorities?
No, it's just to the elders at that stage.
Is it the expectation that a member of the church must report any other member's wrongdoing to the elders? Or is it only particular types of wrongdoing?
The encouragement is, depending on the seriousness of it, I guess too, is that they go to the person that's committed the wrongdoing and encourage them to go to the elders first, and basically making a proviso that if they don't, then the person that's become aware of it will approach the elders and let them know of it. Does that make myself clear enough?
So I can understand that in respect of, say, less serious issues that arise between people. Are there particular kinds of transgressions or wrongdoing or sins, as I understand you would call it, that must be reported to the elders?
Sins that we would have brought to the elders' attention more of the serious nature, things that could result in a judicial committee case being formed, so matters of a sexual nature and things like that. Other matters where it's just someone's upset at somebody, we would encourage them to go ahead and try and sort that problem out themselves. If it became worse, and eventually the elders were called in to try and arbitrate or whatever, but normally following the Bible principles, that is, they try to work those situations out themselves.
And can you assist by explaining where the line is drawn, or how the line is drawn between what's of a more serious nature requiring reporting and what isn't?
Yeah, the more serious nature are things set out in the scriptures that could result in someone being removed from the congregation if they're unrepentant. So sexual immorality and all the stages and things that covers, homosexuality, bestiality, all of those sorts of things.
And that would include child sexual abuse?
Absolutely, yes.
And those things are the ones, I take it, that are set out in the handbooks?
Yes, how we go about instituting the protocol and handling of those aspects, yes.
Now, turning to the case specifically of BCB, and perhaps we can have up on the screen paragraph 49 of BCB's statement. Now you'll see that BCB has said that you asked to speak to her on the basis of information you had received. Do you recall or remember the person BCF who's referred to there? That's a friend of hers to whom she had spoken. The first name of that person, which we're avoiding saying,
Yeah.
it should be on the list in front of you.
Yes, I remember, but I don't remember her coming to see me.
Do you remember how you first got to hear of these issues that BCB raised in relation to Bill Neal?
From my recollection, it was BCB and BCC that came to see me at my home and tell me about the allegations.
When you say, from your recollection, you seem somewhat hesitant about that, is that because of the passage of time?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Hawley, this allegation, I take it, when it came to you, you would have seen as a serious one.
Absolutely. There's a huge breach of trust, Your Honour.
Yeah, and as a consequence, I assume it would have stood out for you at the time. There's something unusual.
At the time, it was something that I hadn't dealt with before, and yes, it was a very serious nature. I took it as a huge breach of trust, not only for the person involved, but for the whole congregation. It would have repercussions that would flow through.
And the matter was reported to you because you were in a position of responsibility?
Yes.
Did you take any notes?
No, I didn't.
Can you help us?
I may have done at the time, I'm sorry, but...
You may have done.
I may have, but
Where are they now?
They would have been destroyed.
Why?
We don't like to have any notes outside of what's kept on file in the congregation.
Why don't you like to have notes of a serious allegation?
There are brief notes kept in the file, but all other notes are destroyed.
Why is that?
I guess it's because we don't want them to fall into the wrong hands of other people to find them and they go through them.
What are the wrong hands?
Well, we don't want our wives knowing what our stuff, what sort of things we're dealing with. We don't want other people in the congregation coming across that information.
So you want to keep it secret to the elders, is that what it amounts to?
about secret, but we want to try and limit the amount of people that have to have a look at that information, yes.
And why is it that you want to limit the people who will have access to the information?
Just to protect them, I guess. We don't...
Protect who?
Protect the person that's involved in it and the rest of the congregation, so that they don't have to know these... I don't know, it's just the protocol that we've had in, so we'll just follow that information. Yeah.
And would you do the same thing today if someone came and reported to you a serious allegation of sexual assault? Would you destroy any notes?
Yes, that's our practice.
And what about telling other authorities? Are you aware of your obligations if someone tells you of a serious allegation of sexual assault?
If we have any hesitation, we contact the branch for advice on how we should proceed legally and scripturally. We don't attend, or we don't report it to the police. I think we encourage them to do that, but we give them the assistance to do that if they need that.
How do you encourage people to report to the police?
My understanding is a little bit unclear because I've never had to do it, so I'm not fully aware on the process, but if it did come to me, I would be just saying, you know, this is a matter that you need to talk to the police about, or the legal authorities, and pursue it that way.
The allegation that came to you, you accepted was serious. Have you, in your time as an elder, had any other people come to you to report a serious allegation of a sexual nature?
Not of sexual assault, but generally misconduct on their own part, or someone that they know of.
What do you mean by misconduct?
Well, if someone's committed immorality with somebody else, then that's been brought to my attention, either by the person that's done it in the way of confession, or it may be that they've heard about it and brought it to my attention, and we've investigated it and handled it that way.
Yes, Mr. Stewart.
You said a moment ago to His Honour, Mr. Hawley, you said that in relation to reporting to the police, you would say to the person, look, this is a matter that you need to talk to the police about, or the legal authorities, and pursue it in that way. Now, what sort of matter would that be? What sort of matter in your mind would be one that you would say to someone, they must go and report to the police?
It would be in the matters of an abuse situation where someone had been forcibly, something like this instance, or probably even worse, or if someone had been raped, or that sort of a matter where police proceedings would be needed.
Now, in this particular case, what were you told initially? You say you spoke with BCB and her husband. What was reported to you?
That the elder concerned had acted inappropriately while she had been staying at his home. From my recollection, it was more to do with the fondling of her breasts, but I think there was also an accusation about him watching her in the shower, and so that's from most of my recollection. I think there was inappropriate kissing of some sort too. But
and these events occurred when she was a minor?
That's correct. She was staying at his home. She'd finished school and was working at a bank, and because her family lived 45 minutes out of town, she would stay with them during the week and go home to her family on the weekends.
And did it occur to you that these were serious allegations that were made?
Any breach of trust, and particularly by an elder in that situation, was viewed very seriously.
And that fondling the breasts of a minor, but indeed anyone without their consent, would be a crime?
I think that occurred to me at the time, and certainly has done since then, but the way that we handle it now is totally different to what we did back then.
Yes, well, we'll stick with back then for now.
Yeah.
And observing someone whilst showering without their consent is a serious allegation, not only within the church's view,
Absolutely.
but even outside the church.
Mm.
And inappropriate kissing. In other words, by that I take it you mean tongue kissing.
That's what I understand.
Of a minor.
Yeah.
That's a crime too. Did you appreciate that?
Probably not like I should have done. Well, it shocked me to have that accusation brought to my attention. I knew it wasn't right. I didn't realise it might have been a criminal matter though.
And did you give any consideration to whether you should report it to the police?
I didn't, no.
Did you give any consideration to whether BCB should be encouraged to report it to the police?
No, I didn't.
Speaking of time.
Very well, we'll take the luncheon adjournment.
Stand.
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.